If you think about it, we are just brains controlling a skeleton that is inside of a giant meat mech, right? As much as I'd like to look more into that, let's just take a look into the brain itself. Luckily for both of us, in the past, people have split it in half to analyze it, and so we don't have to ourselves. So we won't get started by drilling into your head just yet. Let's get started. The brain is made up of many parts, but at the smallest level, it's neurons that fire electrical signals to each other to communicate. These are the building blocks of our brain. But on a larger scale, those neurons come together. We have different parts that do different things. At the largest, we have the occipital, the temporal, the parietal, and the frontal, each with its own purpose and way of perception. So let's talk about it. Let's start with the occipital lobe. It's towards the back of the head, helps you see things. And there's a temporal lobe around your ears, hearing, understanding things you hear and recognizing it. You got the parietal, which is sense of touch, how you touch things, remembering things, remembering where they are. Frontal lobe, how you kind of pilot everything. It's like pretty good. It helps you restrain yourself from those very intrusive thoughts of yours. Move on to what are the main points of this now that you know more about the brain. I'm going to go into the topic of gaming. It's one of the most popular forms of media and also passing time in current years. But let's see what it can do to our brain, how it can affect us, according to some studies. As you know from earlier, the brain is made up of the building blocks known as neurons that fire off with a mix of chemical and electrical signals. They fire off in response to stimulus, which stimulus can be anything really. In this case, it's playing or seeing a game. And when that happens, when something happens and when you react to it, it's called an ERP or event-related potential. An event, it's the potential reacted to it. And there are multiple components that go into the signal of the ERP. But today, for this specific case, we're going to be looking at P300, which can be seen connected to emotional reactions or stimuli via study by Capaccio in 1993 and Ito in 1998. You can look into that more if you're interested. But knowing this, when we see something violent, P300 should be going completely crazy, because when you see something violent, you should have an immense emotional response to it. But what happens when you see it so often that it kind of becomes like nothing to you? Well, it's found that violence in video games can start to have this effect by desensitizing us to these violent things, but luckily only to really violent things. Specifically, in an article they have said, they said in summary, this study is the first to link video game violence exposure and aggressive behavior in brain processes, hypothetically reflecting desensitization in a averse motivational system via Bartholomew BD BD and then Bushman BJ and Sester MA in 2006. But this is characterized by changing the activity that happens in the frontal lobe, which is where all the emotional response happens. But let's take a look.
Oh,
I hope you like that, because I did. But that's only because I think I'm pretty good at games. Even though it's violence, I think I turned out pretty good. But still, other than that, let's take a look at the other side of things regarding this. There's other sides. There could be benefits for your senses by playing different types of video games, which can aid you even outside the game. There can be different improvements in multiple lobes of the brain, such as improved spatial and improved crowding acuity, which is essentially like being able to focus on one thing while other things are happening outside of that. But essentially, what's seen in a different study, the test subjects they had were locked in after being able to play games, which is seen in Bavelier D, Green CS, and Puget A, and Schrader from 2012. Other than that, it can also improve things like decision making and the speed of making those decisions, which is also located at the front of your cranium in that same frontal lobe. But since the games you need higher reaction times than what you do in a typical day-to-day life, they also saw improvement from those groups that were playing those games via the same study. But just to finish that off, I guess just say, do what you want, play what you want, doesn't matter. Enjoy your life how you choose to.